I am Patrick Kelley. My official title is Distinguished Architect at Zoom, yes. My unofficial title that I give myself on LinkedIn, because I can write anything I want on LinkedIn, is Chief Technology Evangelist. Josh's was really good for Jobber, so I just stole his. It sounded really impressive. I am not a Chief Technology Evangelist at Zoom. I'm just a lowly Distinguished Architect, which is about a pretty good title, honestly. I have been at Zoom for 5 years. And prior to Zoom, I worked for a company you might have heard of called Microsoft for 13 years. So I'm pretty well positioned to have this conversation. And it's really a conversation I have hundreds of times a day, it seems like. Most of my customers are enterprise customers. My real job is on LinkedIn or YouTube. I promise you, that is not my real job. My real job is a competitive distinguished architect. And so I typically walk into enterprise deals with the account team and talk about how wonderful this coexistence strategy and relationship is. Full transparency, 5 years ago when I stepped into Zoom, I had a lot of Microsoft loyalty blood still in me. And so the account teams would say, hey, we really need Microsoft out of there. And I would go, yeah, that's never gonna happen. Why you would even say that? So it's taken me 5 years to herd the cats together to have this conversation about coexistence and integration with Microsoft. So I spent 13 years at Microsoft. I started as a network support escalation engineer. I was in charge of supporting LCS 2003 and 2005 SP1 back in the day. And then I was in charge of OCS, and then I was in charge of LCS. Then I was in charge of Links, and I was in charge of Skype and Teams, and you get the point. If you've been around this industry, you've played with all of those things. So then I was a deployment engineer for 9 years, and then I was a voice TSP, and then I was a global black belt at Microsoft. And so when I transitioned to Zoom, it was because I was really, really into the Microsoft ecosystem. I put kids through college in the Microsoft ecosystem. And that is the big difference between Zoom and Microsoft. We have to understand that Microsoft is the largest, by far, ecosystem in the world. There's 3 ecosystems in the world, by the way. There's 3. Apple, right? Apple has their own hardware. They have their own phones. They have their own laptops. I'm using one right now. They have their own servers now, right? They have their own communication software with FaceTime and Messenger. They have their own productivity suite with Keynote and all the cool stuff. They have their own email system. They have their own file repository with iCloud. Consumer model. They're a consumer ecosystem. You rarely see those in large enterprises. I say that, I'm using a Mac right here. The second biggest ecosystem, Google, right? Google is a very, very large ecosystem, but they cater to a different market. They cater to an SMB, maybe mid-market. We go into verticals with education. Right? They have their kind of their own hardware, right? They have their own phones, they have their own Chromebooks. Those aren't enterprise level hardware. They have their own OS with Android, right? They have their own email system with Gmail. They have their own productivity system, right? With Google Docs. File repository with G Drive. But they don't have the entire enterprise stack. In order to complete an enterprise stack with Google, you're gonna have to add a bunch of third-party stuff. CRMs, call centers, phone. Now let's be honest, Google does kind of have a little bit of a phone. It's really bad, but so that it's not enterprise level, right? They have Google Meet, but they are not the enterprise level, right? The only player here, is Microsoft. They're in 99.86% of enterprise accounts. I made that up. I have no idea what it's real. I bet I'm not that far off though, right? I bet I'm not. Because they do everything. Active Directory all the way to Xbox. Some of you nerds are going to say, hey, Active Directory is Entra ID now, but it doesn't really work for my analogy, so I stuck with Active Directory. Right? They have a file repository with SharePoint and OneDrive. They have their own productivity suite with Office 365. They have their own email system. right? They have their own CRM. We say they have their own contact center, but I'm not sure we're quite there yet, right? But the whole point is they can do everything in the enterprise stack. As a customer, you can just choose Microsoft and say, hey, it's going to hit most of my needs. What difference is that Zoom is not an ecosystem. Those things. We are a collaboration and communication and AI platform. I'm required to say the word AI 5,000 times in this. You get the point, is that we have to fit into an ecosystem. And we are agnostic of what ecosystem you pick. You can pick Apple. You can pick Google. You can pick Microsoft. We don't care. That's the point, is that we have to fit into a Microsoft ecosystem, especially in space. And how do we do that? That's really my real job, is really how do we develop product, because I'm on the product team. How do we develop product from a Zoom perspective that fits inside that Microsoft ecosystem? And the reverse is true as well. How do we fit Microsoft inside that Zoom platform? We have what we call application affinity goal at Zoom. By the way, Microsoft has the same thing. Let's be honest. We want to keep users in one application as long as possible. And if you're going to ask Zoom, I get my paycheck from Zoom, I want you to stay inside the Zoom ecosystem platform as long as possible. But if you're Microsoft, you want the users to stay inside the Zoom platform as long as possible. But the point is, we want to provide choice. We truly do. That's one of our goals at product, is provide choice, because guess what? Most of your enterprise customers probably have more than one platform in the communication collaboration space. If you're a Microsoft guy, like, hey, utopia would be if everyone in the world used Teams 100%. It's not what happens. You're a Zoom guy, you're saying, hey, I want everybody to use Zoom 100%. That's just not what happens. Users pick what solution works best for them. And a lot of bigger IT solution companies pick both, if not another one, like WebEx, like another one, like Google, maybe another one, like Slack. I've seen 3 or 4 different solutions for enterprise companies, and users get to choose. We don't live in this draconian IT world anymore. Users want choice, and a lot of times, CIOs are actually giving that to them. But how do we provide choice and efficiency with Zoom and Microsoft? That's really the goal. I'm required by marketing to provide this slide. Basically, what I'm going to say is this stuff on the left side is user stuff. 6 years ago, this would have had one icon on it. It would have had a big meetings icon on it. Then it would have had a phone icon on it. Then it would have had a rooms icon on it. But now, 6 years later, 7 years later, Zoom makes a bunch of stuff. Zoom Docs, Zoom Tasks. We have AI like everyone else in the world has AI, right? We have our own email system. I know, it's crazy, we do. It's really targeted towards small markets, but it's not enterprise level. The whole point is we do a bunch of stuff, and we want users, Zoom client, to do a bunch of stuff. On the right side, that's boring stuff like contact center. I'm not going to talk about that today. Webinars, events, virtual agents, all that stuff. What we're going to do is we're going to stay at the bottom. I'm pretty proud of our developer ecosystem because it's open. What does that mean in nerd talk? You're a bunch of nerds, right? We have open APIs. We have open SDKs. We open these up to partners to make products with. Shockingly, one of those partners is Microsoft. They actually make products that fit into Zoom. We're going to look at some of those today. By the way, I mentor a lot of people on how to have presentations with demos. I tell them never to do live demos. We're not doing any of that today. We're doing all live demos. So I gave a Red Bull to the demo gods earlier this morning, so pray that those work. Allow that, sure, why not? Okay, this is the fork in the road. Whereas an IT company, you say, hey, what are we going to choose? Because it's definitely a 0 or 1, right? What are we going to choose? That was a joke. There's not a 0 or 1. On the left side is the Zoom way, right? I made that term up. It's not really a marketing term. But it's the Zoom way. It's everything inside of the Zoom client. But look what we have down here, some Microsoft ecosystem logos. How can we bring Zoom inside bring Microsoft inside of Zoom. We're going to look and watch how to do that today. But on the other side, and probably the paramount way that you probably deal with enterprise customers is you've already chosen Teams as your collaboration and communication platform. We get it. But we consider at Zoom, we have 4 strong modalities, dare I say, that are better than Teams. I know, it's quiet here all of a sudden. No, we really consider 4 modalities that are better in the Zoom world than the Teams world. That one is calling, one is phone, that is true. One is meetings, very true. One is room, and one is work vivo. Employee engagement, Viva Insights. We consider 4 modalities better than Microsoft. And a lot of our customers agree. But how do we stay inside of Teams and use the power of those 4 things inside of Teams from Zoom and have the user be able to use all of those things inside of Microsoft Teams? We're going to do that demo as well. So when you think of Zoom, if I wore a Zoom shirt to the grocery store, I literally have had people say, oh my God, I love meetings. I love your Zoom meetings. But you're like, hey, did you see this other slide where I made a whole bunch of other stuff? If I were to wear a Microsoft shirt, but you're like, hey, maybe Microsoft makes. Probably something that people would say, Office 365. I know what PowerPoint is. I know what Word is. I know what OneNote is. I know what Outlook is. That's the power of productivity. Zoom is not a traditional productivity company. Did my mic just go off? It's good? All right. Okay, because I'm allowed to hear. Is that right? Okay, I get it. We are not a productivity company in the traditional sense. We do not make a word processor. We do not make an Excel spreadsheet or numbers. We rely on 2 people to do that, Google and Microsoft. And we want to work best with both of those platforms. So choose whatever you want. But what we can do is we can bring those inside of Zoom. Microsoft has a really cool thing called the Microsoft Document Collaboration Platform. It's a program that they put on. Basically, it's a fancy word for, hey, we're going to give you guys, ISVs, we're going to give you the power to bring in Office 365, Microsoft 365 into your application. We're going to partner with you guys to do that. By the way, Zoom's the only partner so far. But that's how well we work with Microsoft in this regard. So we brought in Microsoft Office 365 into Zoom because Zoom, shockingly, has team chat. Teams. The Word, an Excel doc. Inside of Zoom, do that seamlessly without leaving the Zoom client. Remember application affinity. How do we give users inside of Zoom Microsoft stuff? We're going to showcase a demo on that. And here's the cool thing about it is that we did this by doing what we call our SharePoint integration. What that means is this. Whenever you're using a chat platform, any platform, you have files that you create, files that you share. By default, those files are typically stored in the platform you started those on. So think about WebEx. You shared a document in WebEx. Where's that file stored? WebEx Cloud. Google Meet, same thing. Slack, same thing, right? You store those files in those individual clouds. What's the problem with having 4 or 5 different applications? Now 4 file repositories that you have to take care of, right? That's a problem. But what if we could use one file repository? What does Teams use? I think you guys know, right? SharePoint and OneDrive. OneDrive is really SharePoint. It's SharePoint. By default, Zoom uses AWS, by the way, S3 buckets in Amazon. But that creates a problem for large enterprises because now they have 2 places to store files. What if we could do all away with all that stuff? What if we could literally transition Zoom to use SharePoint and OneDrive as your file repository? Therefore, when you create a file from Zoom, you automatically create that file in SharePoint and OneDrive. You don't store it in Zoom anymore. Because now I know where every file is at. SharePoint and OneDrive. Drum roll, please. First demo. Oh gosh, here we go. So let's go to my Zoom client. Sure, you've seen this before, so don't pretend you haven't used Zoom at least once before to test it. I know you have. What's the cool thing is that we have team chat right here, the big chat icon. And it has channels and individual channels and individual users and DMs. We do the same thing that Teams does in Slack. We all do the same thing. But what we did now is this channel, if you look at it, it's called Office 365 Integration. I bet you can't guess what this channel is doing. This channel is actually resting on SharePoint right now. If you look at the bottom, familiar icon, OneDrive icon. Now, what happens when I click on it? Microsoft Office 365 document now. I can now create documents from Microsoft 365 from Zoom. So let's just create a new document. We're going to create a brand new Word document. We're going to name it Comms Next. Let's just create it. Look what happened. We just launched Microsoft Word. Granted, it was a pop-out. I get it. I'm not trying to fool you. It was a pop-out of Microsoft Word. Now, if you look at the top left-hand corner, look where that's stored. If you can't see it, it says Zoomineer, as it's my test account, SharePoint.com. I'm going to type a bunch of stuff. Blah, 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 blah. It's now shared that file to my OneDrive account. Let's go back to Zoom. Here we go. Look what happens now. It's going to ask me what permissions do I want on that file after I created it. Do I want everybody in the channel to view it or edit it? Do I want everyone in the entire company to view or edit it? Do I want just anyone with this link to view or edit it? We're just going to put channel members and we're going to hit done. What it's doing now is applying permissions from Zoom to my SharePoint drive, my OneDrive. So now everyone in that channel now has access. Let's look at the manage the access of that user. Look what here. I click on all the links. Now if you look at that, all these users that are part of my channel now have automatic editing links inside of OneDrive. And I did all of this. I didn't have to go to OneDrive. I didn't have to go to SharePoint to do all this stuff. We literally kept that user inside of Zoom the entire time. What happens, though, is that now we've cut a whole bunch of clicks out, right? The user doesn't have to do anything. They just stay inside of Zoom, and now we can share that file inside of Zoom. Now, everyone in that channel has editing access on that file. What we can also do is, that's one way to do it, right? Creating files from scratch. But what if we want to upload files from a file repository? If you look at this right now, that's the upload file button, in case you're not familiar with it in Zoom. Now when I upload files, I can literally create brand new Office 365 files, but I can also connect to other cloud services, like Dropbox, like OneDrive, right? Like SharePoint, like Google Drive. So let's connect, and I've connected my Microsoft OneDrive to that. So now look at this. We've literally opened up OneDrive inside of Zoom. And why this is so impressive, you guys probably don't know, but I do. This is the same UI as OneDrive. This is not a UI from Zoom. That's part of the Microsoft Document Collaboration Platform. So now I can upload files inside of Zoom right from my OneDrive. Let's select that one. And again, I can apply permissions to this uploaded file from OneDrive, and we'll send it. Now, once we've sent that file, again, it's going to apply permissions to that file. And now look what happens. We actually unfurl this document right from OneDrive. So I can actually get a preview of what this document looks like. We can do that because we have what we call, what Microsoft developed, is the Microsoft Office 365 document. Right here, sorry, this app. Microsoft 365, in the very top left-hand corner. As you can see, this is OneDrive and SharePoint. Look, doesn't it? Because it is. We brought that inside of Zoom. So now not only do I have documents in here, SharePoint documents right here as well. We tried to make this as seamless as possible. Really, document creation, document development, document sharing, all from the OneDrive and SharePoint experience. Brought it inside of Zoom. You guys have any questions? Just talk over me, I promise. Okay. Okay, the next level of, besides chat, what's the next level of communications that you do? It's probably sitting inside of Outlook. Outlook's been around for 4,000 years. That's a slight exaggeration. Probably been around for 40. The point is, when you're a user in the Microsoft world, you want to check email, you go to Outlook. You reply to email, you go to Outlook. Forward email, you get the point. You go to Outlook. But what if we could bring Outlook inside of Zoom? Remember we talked about application affinity. How do we keep a user inside of Zoom longer doing their knowledge worker stuff? That's part of it. Collaboration's part of it with Microsoft 365. But Outlook's part of it as well. But in Outlook inside of the Zoom client. So now I can see my mail inside of Outlook. Inside of Zoom. I can check my calendar inside of Zoom. Where's your calendar stored if you're a Microsoft guy? In Exchange. That's where we're storing our calendar. In Exchange. It's the same calendar. It's not a different calendar. So now let's go back to Zoom. We're back to my home tab. Look at this. You see a mail icon right here. Guess what? Look at the top left-hand corner. Look familiar? It's a Microsoft logo. Look, that's Microsoft email in there. Kind of an OWA experience inside of Zoom, right? I don't think Teams does it even do yet. So users can now look at all my email inside of Zoom. I can look at my calendar inside of Zoom. My calendar is my Exchange calendar. And get this, look at that. I have Teams meetings in here. I have meetings in here. Look what I can do with these Teams meetings. This is after work Teams meeting I have. I can really start that Teams meeting from Zoom. Start a Teams meeting right from Zoom. By the way, in the next demo, I'm going to show you how to start a Zoom meeting right from Teams. We're trying to bring this seamless workflow back and forth between different clients. And also, we can do this. We can now leverage, I promise I'm going to say AI as least amount as possible, but I'm going to have to say it once. Let's look at this. Sennheiser sent me a message here. Today at 11 o'clock. They want to reply to that message. Look down here. The universal symbol for AI, right? A diamond. That's AI Companion. That's the flavor of Zoom's AI. I can literally click on it. Now, AI Companion that comes with your Zoom license is going to go out and read that email, and it's going to create a reply to that email. And now look at that. It creates a reply to that email. I can send it if I'd like, but I can also make it longer. I can make it shorter, right? I can do all the AI stuff. I can change the tone of the email. So now I'm utilizing AI Companion with my Microsoft Exchange email, my calendar. I can also do this. I can also leverage AI Companion to prep me for future meetings. You're saying, yeah, prep you for future Zoom meetings. Not always. There's an AI Companion right here for my future Teams meeting. Look at that. It's my Teams meeting after work. I can start that meeting right from my home screen. Start that Teams meeting right from my home screen. But I can also use AI Companion to prepare me for the meeting. It'll go out and look at all those past meetings, those past Teams meetings, see what kind of notes, see what kind of documents were shared, prepare me for the future Zoom meeting. So that's just one way we can do that. Now, we know I'm very pragmatic, and maybe you want to keep using Outlook. Guess what? Go ahead. I'm not here to change your workflow. Again, I'm here to give you choice. So we have an Outlook plugin. You've probably seen it. There's a plugin for Zoom inside of Outlook. Where, guess what? Let's go to Outlook, where I can literally have my entire calendar. Those look familiar, right? Because it's the same calendar. Zoom, it's the same calendar as in Teams. So I can leverage Zoom as a plugin. So let's go to a new event. By the way, this is a Mac. I know it's crazy. This is what it looks like from a Mac perspective. There's a Zoom plugin right here. If you look at it, I can literally add Zoom meetings to it as well. But here's another thing we can do. Part of your Zoom license includes, and I'm not going to get deep into spaces, but we call it Zoom Spaces. It's the ability to have Zoom rooms, right? Everybody knows what Zoom rooms are, just like Microsoft Teams rooms. But we extend spaces into things like digital signage, native digital signage. We don't use a third party. We use native Zoom digital signage. Visitor management, workspace reservations, wayfinding, reserving conferencing rooms. Think about this. I'm going to reserve, I'm inside of Outlook right now. I want to reserve a Zoom workspace. I have workspace reservations tied in with my Microsoft Exchange account. So now I can literally go to Outlook and book a Zoom room right here. I can see the presence of that room, what's available. I can see the picture of that room. I can see how many members are can fit inside that room. This is all riding on Zoom reservations, workspace reservations. Again, extending that platform into, hey, what client am I going to be in as a user, and how can I extend that to use Teams and or Zoom at the same time, making it easy and hopefully, dare I say the word, seamless, right? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. All right, let's go back to this one. We have to talk about Teams a little bit, didn't you? Microsoft Teams, right? All the other things that we've talked about, Zoom doesn't compete with Outlook. We don't compete with Microsoft 365. We don't compete a lot of the stuff. This is the one area we do, right? Compete. But let's be pragmatic and say, hey, we've chosen Microsoft Teams. It came with our E3, our E5 license. We're going to utilize it for chat. We've been using it for chat for 5 years. But we want to use some of the cool things of Zoom inside of Teams. We have presence integration now with Microsoft Teams. Not only calendar presence, right? Calendar presence is 2 to 3 o'clock on my Microsoft Exchange calendar. I go in a meeting. Doesn't mean I'm in the meeting, just says there's a calendar item from 2 to 3. We're talking about dynamic presence, right? I pick up my Microsoft Teams phone. That's ad hoc presence. That is not on my calendar. That is, I'm busy now. We can push that from Microsoft Teams to Zoom and vice versa. You pick up your Zoom phone. You can push presence to Microsoft Teams. You start a new Zoom meeting. You can push presence to Microsoft Teams. You start a Microsoft Teams meeting. You push presence to Zoom. Ad hoc presence integration between both platforms. And it not only works inside of Teams, but it also works inside of Outlook and Office 365. Direct routing. Direct routing is, you guys are a bunch of nerds. You know what direct routing is. I'm not going to explain it to you. A lot of times I have to do this this presentation in front of CIOs who have no idea what direct routing is. But yeah, so direct routing, using your native Teams phone dialer to trunk into some PSTN SIP trunk somewhere. Who's the SIP trunk? Could be thousands of people, right? Could be 8x8. Could be Ring Central. Could be Zoom. Zoom is a direct routing as a service provider. We can be the PSTN trunk. We don't like to sell it that way, just so you know. We like you to buy Zoom app inside of Microsoft Teams. The ability to create Zoom app inside of Microsoft Teams, a Microsoft certified application, Zoom, inside of Microsoft Teams. We're going to go through a demo in a second. I have to say it again one more time, okay? So at Enterprise Connect, we announced we're bringing in AI Companion into Microsoft Teams meetings, right? So no longer do you need a Microsoft Teams premium license to do meeting summaries. If you own Zoom, you get AI Companion inside of Microsoft Teams. So all your meeting summaries can be done from a Zoom perspective inside your Microsoft Teams meeting. We can share Zoom whiteboards inside of Teams. We share a whiteboard from Zoom inside of Teams. I'll show you how to do it. Dynamics 365. If you are a Microsoft customer and you were the 9% of the world that chose Dynamics 365 as your CRM platform instead of Salesforce, okay, great. You can use Zoom Phone and Zoom Contact Center with full integration with Dynamics 365. This was the big one in Enterprise Connect. It was kind of hidden under a bunch of AI layers, but we announced Zoom Contact Center integrates now with Microsoft Teams. And this is huge. If you were in Tom's session last hour, you saw that there were 6 people, 6 companies that were pending certification. Zoom was one of those, but we announced that it was a little bit old. So we announced that 2 weeks ago at Enterprise Connect. So you can be in Zoom Contact Center and route calls to Teams users as well as Zoom users. And that was huge. So let's go Microsoft Teams. I'm sure you're very familiar with what this looks like. There's a bunch of channels on the left side. There's a bunch of teams on the left side, right? There's a bunch of calendars, stuff on your left nav bar. The ability to chat back and forth between platforms inside of Microsoft Teams. Well, if you look, there is a Zoom icon on the left. Please log in. Thank goodness. All right. Whew, that was close. Does it look like the Teams client? The Zoom client? Because it is the Zoom client inside of Microsoft Teams. And I can do Zoom stuff right here inside of Microsoft Teams. I want to start a new, guess what? Just type in names right here, Patrick Kelley, right? There's going to be a bunch of Patricks here because it's my test in it. So I can, all the Microsoft users right here. I can really invite them to a Zoom meeting. I want to join an existing Zoom meeting. By the way, no one ever uses this, but you can do it. You can literally type in the meeting ID and join an existing Zoom meeting if you really wanted to. If you wanted to, you can schedule a Zoom meeting inside of Microsoft Teams. What time is it? 2:47. We'll just do this really. 2:47. We're going to book a Zoom meeting inside of Microsoft Teams and pretend I invited a bunch of people. I can even invite Microsoft Teams rooms. I can invite Zoom rooms to this meeting. Save. Now, if you look at my calendar, my quick search calendar on the right side, you saw all these meetings in Outlook, you saw all those in Zoom. You can tell that these are Teams meetings. Well, not because it just says Teams meetings, but there's a Teams icon right there. It tells me what kind of meeting it is, right? I can see there's an Office 365 meeting. That's a Zoom meeting. There's a big Z right there. I hope there's a 2:47 meeting. Oh my God, there is. There's a 2:47 Zoom meeting that I just created inside of Zoom. Let's go to my calendar inside of Teams. There's a 2:47 meeting inside of my calendar. I can start that Zoom meeting right from here. I can literally join. I can start that Zoom meeting right from Microsoft Teams. So that's meetings, right? We can look at meetings all day long. Let's go to the phone. Look at how different our dial pad looks than everybody else's. Right? It's PSTN. It looks the same. It does the same stuff. You type in a number, you type in a name, you call a person. I see the call history on the left side, right? I see call Patrick. I got some missed calls, right? That's an outbound call. There's an inbound call. Wireless call. Looks completely different than everybody else's history. No, it looks the same. But what you can see here, though, is what the universal symbol again for AI, right? It's the diamond, the AI companion. What I can do now is invite AI companion to my phone call. And AI companion can be in my phone call and transcribe my phone call, translate my phone call, take notes on my phone call, summarize my phone call, and give me next steps of the phone call inside of Microsoft Teams. This is Zoom AI Companion inside of Microsoft Teams. You can see this complete summary of what happened during the phone call, and you can see the next steps. I'll read it to you because you probably can't. It says, Patrick Kelley's executive assistant to book a family vacation to Maui. By the way, I don't have an executive assistant, nor am I going to Maui. But that is the next step that happened during the phone call. I can see all of that because AI Companion provided me with that ability. I can really see a complete call summary as well if I wanted to dig into it. So that's AI Companion as a phone call. So you can do that today with your Zoom license. In case you didn't know, AI Companion is part of your Zoom license. It's not in addition to your Zoom license. It all comes as one license. So you can leverage these things today. What about call recordings? We can go here, back to history here, live demo. Recordings, same thing. I can invite AI Companion into call recording. Should you have some sort of compliance regulation where you need to record all your calls? Guess what? This is a 15-minute call. If I wanted to, I could hit play. And we can listen to the entire 15-minute phone. Here, because we got AI Companion as part of it. So let's have AI Companion summarize exactly what happened during that Zoom phone call. Give me next steps. I got to order some Chick-fil-A apparently. My wife is hungry. So I get next steps from AI Companion. I get a full call summary from AI Companion. I can read all this inside of Microsoft Teams. If I wanted to read the entire call summary, I can read the whole transcript right here. If I wanted to play the whole thing, I could play the whole thing. All of this is on Zoom Phone. What that gives you now, and let's just pretend again, we're just pretending. What if Microsoft Teams were to ever go down? I know, it's crazy, but just think about it. What if Microsoft Teams were to ever go down and you had this? Zoom Phone would be up. You would have automatic operational readiness built into your platform. You can literally have business continuity built into your platform. You can continue to making Zoom phone calls and receiving Zoom phone calls Even if, again, we're just making up hypothetical here, if Microsoft Teams were to go down. Just something to think about. All right, that's voicemail. Voicemail as well. Again, if I wanted to listen to voicemail, you can listen to your Zoom voicemail inside of Microsoft Teams. But you probably want to do a recap of what happened. You probably want to call a summary of what happened in the voicemail, because I don't really want to listen to your voicemail. I'm sorry. I just want to see, hey, is there anything I need to do? Is there a task that you left me to do? If not, done. I'm out. What else we could do? We can also do this inside of Microsoft Teams. By the way, you can see Presence is working right here. It says I'm in a calendar event because I have a meeting going on right now. Whole point is I can now bring multiple lines inside of Microsoft Teams. I'm part of different call queues, help desk and reception call queues. I'm part of hunt groups. I'm actually a call delegate for Megan Trainer. She's on tour, so she's online right now. So I'm going to get all the phone calls right now inside of Teams, even though those are happening inside of Zoom. I can literally bring in SMS inside of Microsoft Teams. So when we leverage SMS, we can do that as part of our platform. And I know Microsoft Teams just released SMS. Don't get me wrong. This is a greater demo when you guys didn't have it, but now you do. So you have to go with this one. I can really send files inside of SMS. I can use all SMS inside of Microsoft Teams, leveraging Zoom Phone. All right. Here's what else we can do. We're going to try this. Ooh, where's my phone? All right, we're going to try it. We're going to call. We're going to go back to call history here, and we're going to call Patrick back. By the way, that's my cell phone number. You can write it down if you like. All right, we're going to hit mute. We're going to hit mute here. But look what happened here is that, well, something that didn't I don't know if you played with it before, but when you made a phone call in the past, it used to do a pop-out window. It used to pop out the window. Look what's happening now. There's a native call experience. It didn't leave Microsoft Teams to make that phone call. There was not a pop-out of that phone call. And now I can do all the, I just call it advanced stuff, inside of Microsoft Teams. I can really transfer the phone call. I can do closed captioning. I can record the phone call for compliance reasons. I can escalate the phone call to a Zoom meeting, all inside of Microsoft Teams. I could do call transfer. I could do warm transfer. I could do all that stuff inside of Microsoft Teams. Okay. The last thing on this demo, I got 20 minutes. Look, I got 20 minutes left. I'm doing really well. Okay, so we also brought in speed dials inside. What? Yeah, oh yeah, go ahead. Yep, absolutely can. Yeah, you can certainly do. If you want to go back and chat with somebody, you want to you're sharing a document, yep, do all that stuff as well. Yep, go ahead. So when you put AI Companion into the call, you can do it either way. You can do it manually and start it every call, or you can put a policy that says, hey, AI Companion starts in every call. The user on the other side will get a prompt, an audio prompt saying, hey, this call is using AI Companion. Do you want to continue? Hit 1. And then you can continue. So they're fully versed that they are being recorded, transcribed. Yes. Okay. Oh yeah, look at this demo. I killed it because you're going to see what I'm going to do right here. But I'm talking to Jeff Schertz. Some of you might know him. He's on my team. All right? I'm chatting with Jeff back and forth, and I'm like, Jeff, I'm tired of typing. Can we just meet, or can I have a phone call? There's message extensions over here. Those are what those called, by the way. There's message extensions, and there's a Zoom one. The Zoom message extension now pulls up Zoom stuff that you can do in a chat with the Microsoft Teams user. So I want to escalate this chat to a Zoom meeting. Sure can. I want to schedule a meeting for later on, place a phone call later on. I can share a whiteboard. By the way, if you haven't guessed, these are Zoom whiteboards inside of Microsoft Teams. I can share, we're going to share a different whiteboard just to switch it up. I'm going to share a dinosaur icon, a dinosaur whiteboard inside of Microsoft Teams. There's the first demo that failed, that pop-up didn't come up. But you know, oh, look at that. Ooh, slow internet. I shared the Zoom whiteboard in chat with Microsoft Teams user. Now Jeff can open up that whiteboard, and we can both click and co-author on that Zoom whiteboard directly from Microsoft Teams. It's a pop-out of a browser. Yep. So what's going to happen is, Oh, here's another cool, I'll do this cool demo next. With our Microsoft document collaboration platform, this is going to be, in the next coming months, this is going to be embedded in this chat, so you'll be able to actually open it up inside of Microsoft Teams. Same thing when we share files inside of Zoom. So I didn't do that demo, should have practiced that. Here's another cool demo, and we're going to do this one live too, see what happens. Inside of Zoom, I have a new meeting. We're going to start one. There's a disclaimer, I have a test, but you need to get the point. All right, we're going to shut off. I have OBS running. You can see that. You get the point. So what we can do here is what we call in-meeting collaboration. Well, you know you've all been in a Zoom meeting before. You've shared your desktop before. You've shared an application before. And people can just see your desktop, your application. That's cool. What we can do now is when we hit share, we had now, because we've escalated, right? Remember we talked about earlier about SharePoint and OneDrive integration? We've now escalated that to be in a meeting. Now I can share a file from any of these file repositories. But look what happens when I click OneDrive or SharePoint. I'll do OneDrive. I'm going to share a file. It's going to pull up my OneDrive UI experience. I'm running this off my phone, so the internet might be a little slow. All right, look at that. This is my OneDrive Enterprise. This is not a Zoom UX. This is a Microsoft UX. And let's look at this. I can now, there's a cow demo right here. Let's select it. But look what happens in the next screen. In the past, it would just share that screen, right? Or share that file. But look what we have here. We have collaborate mode. Now when we build in Microsoft 365 inside of your Zoom meeting, you can now, what it says, in case you can't read it, it says, I'm going to grant edit access to every meeting invitee in their Zoom email. So everyone that I've invited to this meeting, this Zoom meeting, will now get edit access on this PowerPoint file that we're going to share. Why is that important? Because in the past, I was just presenting that file. You can see it's surrounded in green. That means it's sharing in the Zoom world. But now, let's pretend I had people in this Zoom meeting. Now, all of a sudden, 10 people have editing access on this file. And now think about a bunch of accountants. You share a spreadsheet in Excel. Now, everyone in the meeting can actually share and brainstorm and co-author and co-edit on that Excel file. You got a bunch of marketing people that want to maybe play with slides, change the cows. Guess what? They now have all editing access on that PowerPoint file. I granted it that through the collaboration mode. We can do that with our Microsoft 365 integration. Okay. We'll get out of my Zoom meeting. So far, I'm killing it on demos. The Red Bull sacrifice worked. All right, let's go back. Okay. In the world of chat, you have one choice. You chat in the platform you're on. That's it. That's the choice. You're a Microsoft Teams user? Guess who you chat with? Other Microsoft Teams users. You're a Slack user? Guess who you chat with? Other Slack users. You get the point. You are very siloed. You can only chat in the platform that you're in. What if we could change that? What if I could have Zoom users chat with Microsoft Teams users? What if I could have Teams users chat with Slack users? Well, we can now. Under the Zoom license, you get a partner with a company called Mio that allows you to do just this. So now you can have multiple chat platforms in your environment that can chat with each other. And not just one-on-one chat. Channel chat as well. You can be multiple channels. You can be part of multiple channels inside of Zoom, inside of Teams, and chat across platforms. What happens when you create a new Teams channel? There's three things. Not a quiz, I'm going to tell you. There's a SharePoint site that's created, correct? There's a security group that's created, correct? And then there's a mailbox associated with that security group created. Remember when I talked about earlier that we created brand new channels inside of Zoom that they were stored on SharePoint? If you remember the name, you probably don't, but we're going to pretend you remember the name of the channel. The name of the channel is called Office 365 Integration, if you don't remember. Look at that, that's SharePoint. SharePoint site called Office 365. Because when I created that channel in Zoom, it created this SharePoint site. Let's go to Active Directory. Look at the name of this group, Office 365 Integration Group. The security group inside of Entra ID. Let's go to Exchange. Look at the name of that mailbox. It's Office 365 Integration. Zoom created that channel inside, did all three corresponding things that Microsoft Teams does. So just to remind you, Office 365 integration. In the Zoom world, we put a hashtag in front of it to show you that's a channel. Where is my Teams client? Boom, there it is. Whew. Went there for a second. Would you look at the name of this channel? Microsoft Office 365. That's a Zoom channel. Microsoft Teams users can now see those Zoom channels. Why is that important? Not that I expected you to memorize all the files that were in that, but look at the files that are in it. We'll just remember demos 345. These are the files that I created in Zoom, by the way. If we go to Office 365, we go to resources, you're going to see some other things in here. You're going to see some all corresponding channels. You're going to see some corresponding documents. And if we go down to, let's go back to SharePoint. So many windows open. We go back to SharePoint over here. Look at those same files. Right? It's the same files are shared in Office 365 integration channel with Zoom, SharePoint, and Teams. Because what does Teams use for their channels? It's SharePoint. So now we can share files across platforms as well as chat across platforms. And by the way, when I say share files in Zoom, I'm not really sharing the file. I'm just sharing the pointer to where the file is at in SharePoint and OneDrive. Same thing that Teams does. We talked about the whiteboard integration. We also, I have to say AI Companion one more time. We have AI Companion built into, obviously, Zoom chat. So when you are chatting with Microsoft Teams users, you can create chats, you can literally summarize chats, you can do the same thing, regardless of where those chats came from. Okay, I won't spend a ton of time on that. I got 10 minutes. Okay, I won't spend a ton of time on rooms. I think you all know that direct guest join is a thing out there. I think you all know that it sucks, right? I think we all know that. But what we can do is extend that into other things. So we have a bunch of PECSIP integration where we can extend SIP and stuff to Microsoft Teams rooms, to Google rooms, to WebEx rooms, to H323 rooms. We can do that from Zoom rooms. You can do that from Microsoft Teams rooms. But we can extend what we call Zoom Spaces into visitor management, workspace reservation, wayfinding, room booking, hot desking. We can do all that. Imagine being able to do that, check into a virtual kiosk. Imagine saying, hey, I've been invited to check in to I just booked my cubicle in room. Bring in Microsoft Teams Mobile, go to the check-in desk, scan the QR code, and boom, booked into a Zoom room or Zoom reservation. I don't have all those demos, but they're really cool. I could do them today. You know what that means? Microsoft Purview. That's what the Microsoft Purview. The reason you go to E5 is why? Microsoft Power BI, right? No, it's not. Microsoft Phone. That's why you go to E5, right? No, you go because it's Microsoft Purview. But remember what we were just talking about? Stuff that we about all those policies that you have in DLP. Think about those financial policies that you created in your DLP policies in Microsoft Purview that prevents driver's license numbers, passport numbers, credit card numbers. As soon as you create an Excel file, what? When you move the file storage from Zoom to Microsoft SharePoint and OneDrive, we honor all these policies. We'll start. We honor those as well. E-discovery, no, we didn't talk about e-discovery. We talked about Outlook. Zoom honors all those as well. Azure, by the way, this is my last slide. Go ahead. Absolutely does, because remember that file is actually in SharePoint. So that's archiving, a little bit different than DLP, right? So when we do that, you're going to have, let's just say you have Zoom team chat chatting with Microsoft Teams, right? In that example, you're probably going to have where you start that conversation is where that conversation is saved, right? So in that example, you would need two discovery or archiving solutions to make that happen. Correct. Got around my loophole. CEOs usually don't ask that question. The nerds always ask the question. Okay. All right, Azure. Azure is obviously the cloud solution from Microsoft. What we can do, though, is everything we talked about today, all those users today that I just showed you are Entra ID users. They are not Zoom users. I have full Entra ID integration from my Zoom client, my Zoom account, into my Azure client. I have single sign-on from Azure and Zoom integrated. Everything I've shown you today, all the apps I've shown you are not in Zoom, by the way. They are in your Enterprise Applications portal in Azure. All the permissions that I applied to those applications inside of Zoom are not in Zoom. I use Graph API to apply all those permissions. So you security and compliance conscious people know that these are not Zoom apps. I did not apply these permissions in Zoom. I applied them through Azure. And finally, if you use MDM and Intune, guess what I have for you? I have a Zoom app inside of Intune. Okay. That leaves me with 6 minutes left. Enough to boast about myself for 6 minutes. How about that? I'm Patrick Kelley. I do a lot of these videos, a lot of these things on LinkedIn. I also do them on YouTube. Pretty agnostic, even though I'm a Zoom employee, about I will show you the stuff on a lot of these things inside of YouTube. And so feel free to search for Tat. All I got. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much.